I didn't know the man sitting in the shadows of that luxury sedan was Seoul's most dangerous criminal. I only knew the man hunting me through the streets wanted to sell my body to pay his debts. When I dove into that stranger's car to hide, I thought I was choosing survival. I didn't realize I was choosing him. If the idea of escaping one monster only to land in the arms of a dragon makes your pulse race, smash that like button right now. Subscribe and drop your city and the time you're watching, because what happens in the next 60 seconds changes everything. 3 days ago, I found the burner phone. It was taped under the bathroom sink in the cramped Seoul apartment I shared with Obina, my boyfriend, my abuser, my captor. The phone was full of messages. Clinical. Transactional. Cold. He wasn't just planning to hurt me this time. He was selling me to the highest bidder to clear his gambling debts. Premium price for African girls. One message read, untouched Nigerian merchandise. I'm Chioma. 24. Dark-skinned. Full-figured. Everything Obina spent 2 years teaching me to hate about myself. He convinced me no one would want a woman who took up too much space, whose skin was too dark, whose body was too much. I believed him because believing him was easier than facing the truth, that I was trapped 7,000 miles from Lagos with no family, no friends, and a student visa that felt like a leash. But that phone was my breaking point. This morning, I ran. I made it 5 blocks before I heard his Lexus roaring down the street like a predator closing in on wounded prey. Seoul was a maze I barely understood. The signs were in Hangul I couldn't read. The streets twisted in directions that made no sense. Panic doesn't give you logic, it just gives you raw, animal survival instinct. I saw the underground parking garage of the Meridian Tower and dove inside. My worn sandals slapped against concrete as Obina's engine echoed through the structure, getting closer with each second. My Ankara dress was already torn from catching on a fence. My lungs burned. I was out of options. That's when I saw it. A sleek black sedan. Rear door slightly open. Like fate itself had left it unlocked just for me. I didn't think. I just moved. I squeezed my full hips and thick thighs through that gap and wedged myself into the footwell behind the driver's seat, making myself as small as my curves would allow. The smell hit me immediately, expensive leather, cigarette smoke, and something sharp. Metallic. Dangerous. My heart hammered so loud I was sure whoever owned this car would hear it. Then I heard voices. Sharp. Clipped Korean. The kind of tone that doesn't ask, it commands. The rear door above my head swung open, and a man slid into the seat. He was on the phone, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through the floorboards beneath me. I dared to look up. Custom suit. Perfectly tailored. And on the hand resting casually on his knee, a hand that looked like it could crush stone, was a sprawling, intricate tattoo of a coiled dragon. The scales were so detailed they seemed to move in the dim light. Everything about this man screamed power. Control. Violence. He ended his call and shifted in his seat. That's when his eyes found me. I stopped breathing. Time stopped. I expected rage. I expected to be yanked out by my braids and thrown onto the concrete like garbage. Instead, there was silence. He looked down at me with dark, hooded eyes that were utterly unreadable. No shock. No anger. Just assessment. Like I was a puzzle piece that had suddenly appeared in his perfectly ordered world. He took in my tear-streaked face. My cheap, torn dress. The sheer terror radiating off me in waves. And then Obina's face smashed against the window. My blood turned to ice. He was right there, pressed against the tinted glass, his eyes wild with rage, his fists pounding on the window so hard the whole car shook. Chioma. His voice was muffled, but I knew every syllable. Every threat. Get your fat ass out here. I know you're hiding. You think you can run from me. I whimpered, a pathetic, broken sound I couldn't stop. I squeezed my eyes shut and curled tighter into the floor mats, waiting for the inevitable. Waiting for this stranger to throw me out to save his upholstery. Waiting for Obina to drag me back to that basement apartment where I'd disappear into a shipping container bound for God knows where. But the man above me didn't move. He didn't flinch at the banging. Didn't even look at Obinna. He just watched me. Studied the way I flinched with every bang on the glass. The way I tried to make myself disappear. The way I'd been trained to make myself small. The banging continued. Obinna was screaming now, at hotel security, at anyone who would listen. But this stranger. He leaned down slowly, deliberately. The scent of his cologne, dark, expensive, intoxicating, washed over me. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper, but it carried more weight than any scream Obinna had ever produced. Stay down. Then he did something that fractured my reality. His large hand, rough, warm, powerful, hovered in the air for just a moment before settling gently, almost hesitantly, on my trembling shoulder. It wasn't a grab. It wasn't possessive. It was grounding. Solid. A weight that said, "I've got you." "He will not touch you again," he whispered, and the promise vibrated through his hand straight into my bones. His Korean accent wrapped around the English words like silk over steel. "I'll protect you." He tapped the partition glass. The car began to move, smooth, silent, predatory. We glided past Obinna, leaving him screaming uselessly in our wake, his fury impotent against tinted windows and a man who clearly answered to no one. I stayed curled on that floor, feeling the hum of the engine beneath me, weeping silently as Seoul's lights blurred past the windows above. I was leaving one cage, I knew that much. But I had no idea what kind of gilded fortress I was entering. I looked up at him one more time. He wasn't watching me anymore. He was staring straight ahead, jaw set like carved stone, looking every bit like a king who had just acquired a new, and very troublesome, territory. Did I just escape from danger? Or dive headfirst into something far more deadly? If you need to know what happens next, hit subscribe now because this dragon doesn't play by anyone's rules, and neither will I. Drop a comment if you think I made the right choice. His name was Kian Jae-sung. I learned that from the hushed, fearful whispers of the staff in his penthouse, a sprawling palace of glass and steel that overlooked Seoul like a throne room. I was given the East Wing, a suite larger than any home I'd known in Lagos or here. Silk dresses filled the closet, all in my size, as if he'd known my measurements before I even arrived. For 6 days, I lived in luxury and isolation. I didn't see Kian. I was attended by silent guards who brought me meals I was too anxious to eat. The television news told me everything I needed to know. A warehouse fire had consumed several low-level loan sharks and human traffickers. Among the missing, presumed dead, Obinna. Kian hadn't just saved me. He'd erased the threat entirely. On the 7th night, I was summoned to his office. The room smelled of old books and power. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, the Seoul skyline glittering behind him like a kingdom he owned. When I entered, he turned, and the intensity of his gaze nearly buckled my knees. "You've seen the news," he stated. "Not a question. Did you kill him?" My voice shook despite my attempt at strength. Kian walked toward me, closing the distance until I could feel the heat radiating from his body. The debt he owed was not financial. He was selling something that wasn't his to sell. He offended me. He stopped inches away, his dark eyes roaming over my face, my neck, my curves, every part of me that Obinna had taught me to hate. But in Kian's eyes, I didn't see disgust. I saw possession. Hunger. "Why did you save me?" I whispered. "I'm nobody. I'm just." "You think your value lies in how small you can make yourself." His voice dropped, edged with anger, but not at me. "That man broke you to feel powerful. I don't need to break things to prove my strength." He reached out, his thumb tracing the fading bruise on my collarbone. His touch was feather-light, reverent. "I kept you because when I looked in your eyes in that garage, I saw a will to survive that matched my own. And because," he paused, his gaze dropping to my lips before meeting my eyes again, "because I decided I wanted you." It wasn't romantic. It was a declaration. A warlord claiming territory. "You are mine now, Chioma." Those words haunted me for the next 24 hours. Was I safe, or was I owned? The answer came when I found the file. I'd been organizing his library, trying to be useful so I wouldn't be discarded. A manila folder slipped from a stack and hit the floor. The label read, Obina, Debt Acquisition. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were debt ledgers, transaction records, and a final document that made the room spin, a transfer receipt showing Obina's debt, hundreds of thousands, stamped paid in full. The signature at the bottom was elegant and sharp, Kian Jae-sung. The date was the day he found me in his car. He hadn't just saved me out of kindness. He'd bought me. I sank into the leather chair, the paper trembling in my grip. I wasn't a guest. I was an asset. A transaction. Every kindness, every gentle touch. Was it just him maintaining his investment? So you found the receipt. I jumped. Director Hannah stood in the doorway, her sharp suit and sharper smile radiating cold disdain. She was Kian's second-in-command, and she'd made her disapproval of my presence clear from day one. She walked over, her heels clicking like gunshots. You think he saved you because he likes you? Don't be naive. Kian doesn't make emotional decisions. He bought that debt to gain leverage over the Iron Serpents, the syndicate your ex worked for. You aren't a girlfriend, Chioma. You're bait. My stomach dropped. They'll come for you to save face, she hissed, leaning close. And when they do, Kian will crush them. You're just the cheese in the trap. Once the war is over, you'll be discarded like yesterday's trash. She left, and I shattered. Minutes later, Kian walked in. He looked exhausted, smelling of rain and smoke. When he saw me by the desk, his face softened. Chioma. I flinched away. The hurt in his eyes was instant, but before either of us could speak, red emergency lights bathed the room and alarms screamed through the penthouse. A security guard burst in, holding a small box. Kian opened it slowly. Inside was my old phone, the one Obina had taken from me months ago. And a note, a debt is never fully paid. The Iron Serpents. They knew I was here. The war had arrived. Is Director Hannah telling the truth? Is Chioma just bait, or is she the prize he's willing to burn the world for? Hit that like button if you think he's falling for her. Subscribe and comment your theory, bait or beloved. The answer will shock you. The alarm stopped, replaced by stark white light. The folder, the evidence of my purchase, lay between us like a chasm. I pointed at it with a trembling finger. Is it true? Am I just bait to you, Kian? He looked at the file, then at the door where Hannah had exited. His jaw tightened. Hannah is useful, but she's jealous. She sees the world in assets and liabilities. She cannot understand why I broke my own rule. What rule? I never bring work home. He finally looked at me, the intensity in his eyes stealing my breath. And I never let liabilities live. If you were just a tool, I would have left you in that garage. He pulled out a gold lighter. Without hesitation, he lit the corner of the debt ledger. We watched as it curled and blackened, turning to ash in the metal waste bin. I bought the debt so no one else could claim you, he said, stepping over the ashes. I cleared it so you would belong to no one, not even me, unless you chose to. He took my hand, his skin rough and warm. You are not bait, Chioma. Bait is disposable. You are the only thing in this city I'm afraid to lose. The wall around my heart crumbled. He wasn't using me. He was starting a war to keep me. The next evening, the penthouse buzzed with activity as Kian prepared to attend the midnight gala, neutral ground for the underworld elite, to face Chairman Seo of the Iron Serpents. You'll stay in the panic room, he ordered. No, I said firmly. I'm going with you. He turned slowly, unused to being defied. It's dangerous. I survived Obina for 2 years. I can handle a dinner party. I stood my ground, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I went through his files. I know the shell companies the Iron Serpents use. If you go alone, it's a standoff. If I go with you, I can identify the men who don't belong. He assessed me, seeing not a broken woman, but a partner. A slow, proud smile touched his lips. Then get dressed. We leave in an hour. The dress was deep burgundy silk, hugging every curve I used to hide, with long sleeves covering my scars. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see the frightened girl from the garage. I saw a queen preparing for battle. Walking into the gala on Kian's arm was like entering a lion's den. The music stopped when we entered. Hundreds of dangerous eyes turned to us. To him, the Dragon of Seoul, and to me, a full-figured Nigerian woman standing tall beside the most powerful man in the room. I heard the whispers, saw the sneers. Kian's hand tightened on my waist, pulling me closer. He wasn't hiding me. He was claiming me. "Keep your head up," he whispered against my ear. "Let them see what a real queen looks like." We reached the center of the ballroom. Across the floor, an older man with cold eyes raised a glass to us, Chairman Seo. He smiled like I was a mouse that had walked into a trap. But I'd learned how to bite. The gala suffocated me with its false politeness. I stood beside Kian, my eyes scanning the crowd. Years with Obinna had taught me hypervigilance. I noticed the waiters rotating too frequently near our section, one making eye contact with Chairman Seo across the room, a micro-expression, a tiny nod. Then I saw it. A glint of metal from the mezzanine level. A red laser appeared on Kian's chest, right over his heart. "Get down!" I screamed, throwing my body weight against him. The crack of the rifle echoed like thunder. The champagne glass in Kian's hand exploded where his chest had been a second ago. Screams erupted. We hit the marble floor hard. Kian rolled instantly, covering me with his body, pulling a silver handgun from inside his jacket. His composed face twisted into pure, terrifying rage. "Move!" he roared, firing shots toward the mezzanine and dragging me toward the kitchen exit. We didn't take the main elevator. We burst through the kitchen and into a waiting van that sped toward the shipping docks, the underbelly of his world. We stopped at a converted shipping container safe house. Inside, Kian checked me for injuries, his hands shaking when he found blood on my sleeve from debris. "You pushed me," he whispered, cleaning the wound. His dark eyes were wide with awe and horror. "You saved my life, Chioma." "I couldn't let them take you," I said simply. He dropped the gauze and cupped my face. "I'm supposed to be the shield. Not you. Never you." Then the lights cut out. Red emergency strobes flashed as the doors sealed electronically. Heavy boots echoed outside. We'd been lured into a trap. Kian handed me a heavy pistol. "There's a hatch in the floor. When I open that door, you run." "No," I whispered. "I'm not leaving you." He grabbed my shoulders hard. "This isn't a negotiation. If anyone comes through that hatch who isn't me, you shoot." He was planning a sacrifice to let me escape. He pressed his forehead to mine for a split second, a silent goodbye. Then he kicked the door open and sprinted out, firing shots to draw their attention. But I didn't run. I climbed the maintenance ladder to the crane operator's cab above. Below, gunfire erupted. I saw Kian pinned down, outnumbered. Then I saw the driver who'd brought us here, flanking Kian with a shotgun, aiming at his exposed back. Kian didn't see him. He was seconds from execution. I grabbed the control levers and slammed them forward. The massive crane groaned. The steel shipping container swung violently, smashing into the traitor and his cover. The impact shook the ground. The battlefield went silent. Kian looked up at the crane, seeing me, realizing I hadn't run, realizing I'd fought. That moment unleashed him. The dragon was freed. He vaulted over the pallets with terrifying speed and precision, closing the distance on the remaining assassins. It was brutal, efficient, final. Within seconds, silence fell. Kian stood amidst the carnage, then looked up at me. I climbed down on shaking legs. I expected anger for disobeying him. Instead, he walked toward me and dropped to his knees on the dirty concrete. He wrapped his arms around my waist, burying his face in my stomach, holding me so tight it almost hurt. He was shaking. "You stayed," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "Everyone runs. But you stayed." I rested my hand on his hair, feeling the tremors in his powerful body. "I told you. I'm not going anywhere." He looked up at me, the darkness in his eyes replaced by fierce devotion. He stood, lifting me effortlessly into his arms. We walked out of the fire as one. Sunrise painted Seoul in gold. The threat was broken. Kian's message had been received. Director Hannah was escorted out, her office cleared. Kian had chosen loyalty over tenure. I found him on the balcony. He didn't turn when I approached. He simply handed me a heavy black velvet box. Inside was a gold ring set with black onyx, bearing the dragon crest of his family, a signet ring, the kind only heads of the family wore. "I promised to protect you," he said, his voice rough. "But I was wrong. You don't just need protection, Chioma. You need power." He slid the heavy ring onto my finger. "Perfect fit. You are not my mistress. You are my equal. The queen of this empire." I looked at the black stone, then at the city that once terrified me. I wasn't the trembling woman hiding in the back seat anymore. I was standing at the top of the world. I accepted the ring. I accepted the dragon. From victim to queen, Chioma's journey proves that sometimes the most dangerous love is the one that sets you free. Which part moved you most? The escape, the gala, or the crane scene? Drop your city, time, and favorite moment in the comments. Subscribe so you don't miss what happens next, because this queen's story is just beginning.